Hello, this webinar is a part of the Cycle of Freedom series, Renewal. Can freedom be recovered and restored? Well, unquestionably, the present challenge calls for sustained and serious reflection. It sharpens the need for a frank judgment about sustainable freedom. Frank judgment requires courage, but currently there seems to be no courage in the hearts of men. There's a need to look deep and work hard. John William Gardner said, "It is by means of the free society that we keep ourselves free. If we wish to remain free, we had better look to the health, the vigor, the viability of our free society, and to its capacity for renewal." In Europe, French philosopher and Nobel Prize winner Albert Camus, "Freedom is not our award or decoration that is celebrated with champagne, nor yet a gift, a box of dainties designed to make you lick your chops. Oh no! It's a chore, and a long-distance race, quite solitary and very exhausting." Can freedom be renewed, recovered, and restored? Os Guinness says ideas do not have lifespans as individuals and peoples do. Ideas can be recovered and thrive in different times and different places. In fact, Thomas Jefferson believed the framers were recovering the ancient truths of the Hebrew Republic and the Anglo-Saxons. Let me suggest 6 steps of renewal, how freedom can be recovered and restored. Firstly, a proper self-assessment. Second, revival of personal faith. Thirdly, revival of virtue and ethics. Fourthly, revival of the study of founding principles. Fifthly, allowing truth in the public square. And sixth, the rebalancing of the societal spheres. Let's take a look at these one by one. First, a proper self-assessment. Well, that's what this whole series has been about. And frankly, a majority of people in the United States believe that we're in these last 3 stages on the right-hand side of the cycle: apathy, dependency, and weakness. So that's where we find ourselves in the United States today. Second, then, let's take a look at revival of personal faith. In this series, I made the statement that the First Great Awakening and the Second Great Awakening revived the spiritual faith of the United States of America and allowed us to return to the left-hand side of the cycle. Another revival I did not mention, the Layman's Prayer Revival of 1857 to 1859, did a similar thing, as millions of people were reignited in their spiritual faith or began their personal journey in personal faith, and we lived on the left-hand side of the cycle of freedom again. There are ancient writings in the Second Chronicles of the Kings 7:14 that challenge people of faith to these steps. "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, says God, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land." Let's look at these in brief. Humility, prayer, seeking, confessing, and turning. People of faith are called to these things, and as this happens in their own lives and their lives are transformed, society can be transformed. Thirdly, there needs to be a revival of virtue and ethics. We've made a statement about the left side of the cycle, that it takes effort to live on this side of the cycle. It takes a commitment to virtue, character, and unchanging principles, principles that are true for all people at all times everywhere. And we looked at these moral duties of courage and self-responsibility, self-control, diligence, honesty, truthfulness, trustworthiness, integrity, sacrifice, benevolence, fidelity, and purity, loyalty, patience, peacemaking, valuing of life, respecting of others, faithfulness, forgiveness, keeping of promises, protecting others, and justice and civic duty. And these core anchor of moral duties create a society that's stable and healthy. We need a revival of these moral duties and these ethics, and these need to be lifted up and not dismissed or mocked in society. Fourthly, there needs to be a revival of the study of founding principles. I have mentioned in this series the bicentennial awakening, that between 1976 and 1990 there was a resurgence in understanding the first principles of the United States. And this aligns with Thomas Jefferson's remarks: if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. And so the renewal of that period was very important. But today, here are the college tests of students' civics and history in U.S. colleges. An average student gets 54, seniors get a 58, seniors at prestigious schools get a 52, and professors themselves get a score of 55, all scoring Fs on American history and civics at U.S. universities. In fact, a Yale lawyer reflected upon his years at school and said, "I spent 3 years getting my law degree at Yale Law School. From the moment I enrolled, I was assigned huge leather-bound editions of legal cases to study and discuss. I read what lawyers and judges and professors and historians said about the Constitution, but never once was I assigned the task of reading the Constitution itself. Over the last decade, however, I have become a student of the Constitution, searching each line for its meaning and intent. Studying the Constitution is like studying the Bible. It's amazing how much more you will learn when you quit studying about it and pick it up and read it for yourself." Well, Hillsdale College has a course, Constitution 101, that you can Google that phrase and find it, and it's free, and it's in-depth, and it's outstanding. Additionally, uscivicstraining.org, the sponsoring of this series, provides in-depth, detailed training of American history and other cultural ideas. And for those people that want to go deeper with their faith, they can consider christiancivicstraining.org. Fifthly, there needs to be a pursuit of truth in the public square. There needs to be an intelligent and informed electorate, and that is required for a healthy, freedom-functioning society. Error of opinion, Jefferson says, may be tolerated where reason is left free to combat it. And I showed this image and quote in this series: "The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose, and it will defend itself." So we need a media and a people that seek after truth and have it presented in our cultural discussions. Lastly, we need a rebalancing of the spheres. For maximum individual and freedom in society, the individual needs to be self-responsible and self-governing. The family needs to be responsible for healthy married couples, where there's love, care, and provision for the family, and the raising of children, and the educating of them, and passing on a legacy. The church and nonprofits have a role in society for faith, inspiration, transformation, encouragement, and accountability. And the government has a limited responsibility of protection and justice. When these are properly balanced and the spheres are properly ordered, a society can experience maximum individual freedom and liberty. This is what needs to be taught in order to break this cycle from cascading from the left-hand side and then running to ruin down the right-hand side, where these principles need to be constantly taught between these ingredients of spiritual faith, courage, strength, and liberty. Well, here are some closing thoughts. A question. 3 of history's great questions, common to all civilizations toward the end of their course, must be asked. What do you have that you did not receive? What have you done with your inheritance? And what is to be done if you answer the first 2 questions with honesty? At a minimum, these questions direct us to the action of training future generations. Freedom assumes and requires a covenant. It is a covenant not only among those who are living, but between those who are living, those who are dead, and those who are yet to be born, and all of us together under God. So the steps to renewal are proper self-assessment, revival of personal faith, revival of virtue and ethics, revival of the study of founding principles, pursuing truth in the public square, and the rebalancing of the spheres. Will you commit toward working toward these ends and helping others work toward these ends in our society? This is U.S. Civics Training. Thanks for listening.